So I recently just got back from Hong Kong, and the reason why I was there was because I was attending my grandma's funeral. So the reason why I'm making this video is just so that I have a peace of mind and a piece of something, like a memory that I could keep about my grandma basically forever. It's going to be on the internet. The reason why I want to do this is because it's something that I can look back on in the future, and maybe even friends and family can look back on it as well. So anyways, on the 31st of March, that was when I found out my grandma passed away. How I found out was like this. I was out and about in the city, and I got a text message from my mom with a black and white picture of my grandma, and underneath there was some Chinese words. The moment I saw that, my heart just sank. Like literally I could feel my heart just sink. That feeling was so strong and intense. I just closed that picture and just kept walking, and I was just thinking, like, no, that can't be it, right? That can't be it. Like, I sort of in the back of my mind I knew what it was, but I just didn't want to believe it. And then when I had time to just sit down and message her or call her, because I knew there was something really serious when she just sends me a black and white photo of my grandma, who we all know has been in the hospital for the past year, so she hasn't been well. And in a sense, it's also like a relief for her because she's been bedridden for a whole year. She could not talk, she could not move, she couldn't do anything at all. She's unfortunately what you'd call a human vegetable, but she's conscious. That's the really scary part. Like, all of us wish she was not conscious throughout that whole year. None of us had the right to say, let's unplug the machines and let her pass, because no one has the right to say that, and everyone will be really upset to the person that did. It's really iffy because we all know that she does not want to be in this position. At the same time, no one could really say anything about it. So you might be asking right now, how do we know she's conscious? And the thing is, whenever someone new goes to her, she would light up, like her eyes would light up, and after a while, if they stay around for long enough, she'll begin to just doze back to her state where she just doesn't move much at all. So we know that for sure. And she's also Christian, she's religious. I think it's a sister or a priest or something like that. I have no idea, I'm not religious myself, but basically one of them that was from Australia went all the way to Hong Kong. Just to clarify, she goes to church in Australia, and she's been there for a very long time. She goes like half a year in Australia, half a year in Hong Kong, and that's just how it's been. So when that sister or priest came over, she literally turned her entire body to face that priest and start nodding, which is probably like borderline impossible, right? No one expected that to happen. And that's when I saw that video, like I wasn't there in Hong Kong, but I saw it because they're always posting videos back to us, so we could see what's been going on and stuff. And I could see that she was conscious, and everyone was really shocked and knew that she knows what's going on. It's really sad. But so after messaging my mom, I decided to call her, and then I was getting on the bus because it was track work that day. I couldn't catch a train from the city back to my home. So I had to call her, and then I figured out what was happening. She actually just explained it and confirmed my worst suspicions, which was really heartbreaking. So I think I was just like crying throughout the entire bus ride. It was pretty pathetic. Everyone was like staring at me and then looking away. I didn't care. I just like bawled my eyes out. And then when I got home, that's when I made the Yorick video. So on the 31st of March, I made the Yorick video. It uploaded on April 1st. So a few comments were saying that it could be a troll. It's not. It's real. Anyways, before I made that Yorick video, I decided to go talk to my mom, and then, we had a really long talk, didn't know what to do, made the video anyway, and then after that went to sleep, and just like, I couldn't sleep actually. It was really, really hard to sleep because I just kept thinking about her and about like all the times we've been through, that she looked after me. I remember that she likes playing the piano, so I would always listen to her play the piano. She even tried to teach me, but I'm really bad at learning. I couldn't play any more than just Happy Birthday with one finger on the piano. She also taught me like a few characters in Chinese, but because I was, again, a really bad student, I didn't end up learning anything other than a few characters as well. But otherwise, she made really delicious meals for me. I always gave her really big hugs. Like, we basically lived together, at least like throughout my childhood. So she was pretty much a parent, because I didn't grow up with a father who passed away when I was very young, like 2 years old, almost 3. So she was basically like a second mother to me. I do remember that grandma always went to church on Sundays, and I would always go with her. But what I realized is, after going to church for many years, every Sunday, I never became religious. And I think the reason being is it's all really just down to my own personal opinion is as long as something sounds a bit far-fetched and I don't physically see or feel it, then I won't believe it. But grandma truly believes it, and I always tried to challenge her religion throughout, which was very childish. But then again, I was like 6 or 7 years old, so, you know, fair enough, right? It's good to ask questions. And I'm really glad that I did not end up swaying her, because I feel like the most important thing about any religion is really just to ease your mind into the afterlife. I feel like that's something that every religion has in common, is just to ease your mind so that when you do pass away, you won't feel as stressed or as bad knowing that there's some greater purpose or you're going to get reincarnated or whatever religion it is. But yeah, I don't want to talk too much about religion because I know there's people watching that might get offended. On the 1st of April, I uploaded the video, and at the same time we were buying plane tickets straight away to go to Hong Kong. We end up buying tickets and then changing the times around, paying a lot of money, which was pretty expensive and very dumb because we're basically just like rushing our way over to Hong Kong right away just to go and see her. And I basically made a video telling you guys the wrong dates, and then after that I had to amend it later after we changed the tickets around, and then it became like a much longer trip. Rather than 7 days, it became like 21 days. So I ended up flying on the 16th and then coming back on like the 6th or 7th, something like that. So right now I'm just going to recall my experience, or at least what I remember throughout this entire trip. On the very first day, I remember going to my mom's sister's place, and then we stayed for the night. Nothing really much happened because we caught a plane and then we arrived at nighttime, so basically had to just settle in, shower and sleep. The second day we met up with a bunch of relatives and we went for yumcha. I have to say that one of my relatives is quite wealthy, so he would generally just keep inviting everyone to yumcha or dinners and stuff like that. I would assume that outside of us coming over to Hong Kong that he would normally just stay at home and eat or save a lot of money, and that's how he has so much money, I guess. At least that's what I've been told. On the third day, we have all the closest family members. We go over to like, I don't know what it is. I think it's like a mock funeral, is where we go there and then we rehearse. So it's like the funeral room in Hong Kong is literally a room. It's indoors because there's really no outdoors in Hong Kong. Everything's like tall high-rise buildings, so everything's conducted indoors. I feel like what I can describe that room as is a mini church. So you walk into the big doors, and then there's an aisle that you walk through in the middle. On the sides, there's like these wooden benches that look like you're in a church, basically. Past those wooden benches are flower circles, or what you call, well, I have it written down here, flower wreaths, but in Chinese they call it hua qian, which is flower circle, in direct translation. And basically what those flower circles are is you hire them for like some ridiculous amount of money, which is what I've been told. And each flower circle represents a family member. So someone that's close, like maybe it's her grandchildren, her son, her daughter, and all of that. So just like the family tree, basically. So if I have just one kid, I'd literally just have one flower circle right in front of my photograph if I have a funeral. And then if they have children, it will be on the side towards the benches. That's what it looked like. So there was a big photograph of my grandma at the very front, and she was smiling, which made it a lot more sad than, oh my god, it was really sad when I saw that photo. I think what made it worse was when I went to the back, because everyone had to go straight to the back, and when I walked towards that room, like before I even entered, I could hear sniffling, and I did not understand. I was like, what is happening? I hear sniffling. I could not understand. But later on, I found out pretty quickly that my grandma's body was literally behind the front stage. So like behind the stage, you have your storage where you just put all your bags, and then the other side is like a cooler room or a freezer room, and it had a coffin and her body inside. But she had like makeup on, so it looked like she was just sleeping. But everything was covered. Her hair was covered, her entire body was covered, and she was like sleeping really peacefully. I feel in situations like this, the happier they look and also how natural everything seems just makes it feel a lot more sad, just because you know what is happening. So went in, and then I think the very first time I saw her body, I didn't react. I think I was just in shock. So it took a while for like tears to start rolling down, because by the time it was the 19th, it was almost 3 weeks since I heard of the news of her passing, so my mind already settled a lot, and that's why it took a while for the shock to come back. The other thing I realized is all the family members and relatives, they were very cold, I guess. They didn't talk to me, they didn't really greet me. I felt really awkward because there's all these family relatives that I haven't seen in a long time. I didn't know whether to smile or greet them given the situation, and it is the first day I see them because that's where everyone's gathered, is on the 19th. So given the situation, I felt really awkward and didn't know what to do. And I guess the others were the same. They didn't talk to me either, so it felt really cold and awkward and strange. I think it's still appropriate for them to greet me and I should greet them, but I am socially awkward, so I didn't end up doing that. Just sat silently on one of the chairs. Maybe just bawled my eyes out when I was just staring at the photograph at the front where she's smiling. So on the 19th, they went through the funeral rites and all of that. I guess all this talking, I didn't understand any of it because it was in Cantonese. I don't really understand Cantonese. I understand Mandarin though, but very limited. So even if they spoke Mandarin, I think the language would be a bit too deep for me to understand from my everyday understanding of just basic Mandarin. So either way, it didn't work out for me. I didn't really understand what they were saying. But I do know that there was some singing, some choir, which was all in Cantonese, so I couldn't join in. I just really stood there awkwardly, and everyone was singing around me when everyone was bowing their head down, which happened many times throughout this funeral rite. I was really slow because I had to look around, and then I followed suit. I was really just staring at her picture the whole time because everyone got a small booklet with a timetable and basically what's going to happen throughout the day. And I was just staring at the front page, which was my grandma's photo. So after about 4 or 5 hours, the ceremony ended, and then we were given these packets that had a little card in them, say something generic, I think it was in Chinese, and then you have a coin and a lolly, and you're supposed to eat the lolly and, I don't know, throw away the coin or something like that. I'm not sure, but we end up keeping the coin, but you have to throw away the white envelope because it's bad luck to take it home. So that's something that I didn't know. The one thing I was thinking about throughout the entire funeral was just how important it is to have children. As traditional as it sounds, all these old people would tell you, get a job, get a girlfriend, get married, and have kids. That couldn't be more true. I feel like after going through that funeral, I realized that if I was personally, I never have a kid or I just have one kid, how empty would my funeral room be? I mean, I guess I wouldn't really care because I don't really care if I want to have a funeral or not. I think I don't even want my kids to spend money on my funeral because the whole process is actually ridiculously expensive. Everyone wants to take a large chunk of your money. Whether it's those Christian singers or the preacher at the front that was talking the whole time, or the translator preacher, or the room, the flower circle things. The coffin costs a fortune as well. And then after that, you have to invite all the relatives, so everyone that was in attendance, to go and have yum cha, which is also, I don't know, it didn't feel appropriate. I felt like it felt not so right to enjoy a feast and everyone sits and chats, and it just didn't seem right to have that right after the funeral, which happened on the second day. So the second day was the real funeral. It was when everyone came, not just the close family members, but everyone, friends of families and more distant family members decide to fly over or come over. So we had to book all the hotels for everyone as well. So that was pretty ridiculously pricey. A lot of that money came out of my grandma's savings. So whatever my grandma had left over, they were just flat out spending all of it. It was insane. The only difference is on the second day, we had to drive up to some sort of mountain where the cremation chambers were. So they had to press this button on the conveyor, and then as you press it, the coffin slides into an elevator, and the elevator just drops the body down. Felt like the whole process was really dodgy because it took about 7 or 8 days to get the urn, which was a little glazed pottery, and apparently they burned her clothes, the coffin, and the entire body, and there was not much ash. So I don't know what was going on. They are burning bodies non-stop in that place, and they could easily just mix up the ashes. So I felt like this is some really dodgy business, and obviously they charge a fortune for that as well. They're just getting ashes, put it in an urn, and just give it to you, even though she's cremated instantly on the spot. So we had to drive away on the bus and then just wait out the week. After that, once we got the urn, which was quite a while later, we immediately went over to China. So we caught like the high-speed rail or the bullet train, and took us from Hong Kong, or specifically Olympic Station in Hong Kong, all the way to Xiamen. And then we had to go up to the mountains to give the urn and also pay all the people that are going to dig up the grave and bury her. So she'll be buried with her husband or my grandfather. The best way to go, I feel, if I was to live into my 90s, and be buried with my future wife. I think that's, I don't know. I mean, that's how people end up being, all of us. Or maybe scattered into the ocean. I don't know. It just feels like, I feel like what I've learned from all of this is just to leave behind a legacy. So whether it's to have a few kids, I would say at least 2 kids. Have at least 2, because then they would have a husband or a wife, and then they would have kids, and I don't know, you'd at least get some closure. And also the fact that when you're old, you have people looking after you. Grandma had her oldest son looking after her the whole time, who was like very wealthy, so he could afford it, and he wouldn't let her go to, what do you call those like old people places? I believe it's called the retirement home. And the general consensus in our family is it's really disrespectful for your elders to be put into a retirement home. They should just be living with their sons and daughters, so when they're older, obviously. So for example, my grandma was living with her oldest son, who could look after her, and he had maids or servants that he hired to look after her 24/7, and that's how it is. I feel like that's what I will be doing in the future for my mom as well, just simply looking after her when she gets old. So she was buried on the 30th, and then after that we had about a week and then fly back to Hong Kong. So we had about 1 week where we just did whatever we wanted, and because there was some tradition where we had to wear black clothes throughout the funeral days and throughout the burial days, we had packed a lot of black clothes. So what I'm trying to say is there's some sort of superstition where you can't visit family, friends, and other people's homes because it brings them really bad luck. If you have a close family member pass away, you shouldn't be visiting others. So all we could do was just have yum cha all day, which I got really sick of. I know I sound really spoiled, but if you have yum cha like say 3 times a day or 2 times a day constantly throughout, I gained a lot of weight. I gained about like 4 or 5 kilos since I left Australia, which I'm trying to fix right now by going to the gym. But besides that, have a lot of yum cha. I mean, I can't complain. I asked for a variety, like very quietly and discreetly, but they just want yum cha because that's what they're used to. So yum cha every day. It's the same dishes all the time. And eventually we came back, so it was a really long plane ride, trying to get back into the groove of making videos, so it's going to be kind of difficult to relearn the game, get myself up to where I think is at least watchable, and then start making videos again. So hopefully you'll be seeing this alongside my video. Anyways, thank you for watching.